Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm just going to be having some quick discussions about what I would like to see of the ban list, because at the minute it's getting crazy and it feels like nothing is going to come off the list whatsoever, except for things like that are getting limited, like the like void, until it gets errated. But I don't think that counts as being coming off the list, so to speak. So I just want to talk about how I feel like the list should work and would probably work well for Elestrals. I mean, it works well in one other game that I can think of. It uses the same sort of system that I would love to see. And bearing in mind, the examples that I will show are not 100% be there. So this is the current limited list and card restrictions. So we have so many limited cards. And when your opponent sees these limited cards, it feels so bad to go against. If they rise from the ashes something big, it feels like you've just been cheated out of a win because they've drew the one-off. Same with Earthquake, Resting, Lift not so much anymore, but it's still a pain in the ass to go against. Equilinx is annoying. Kinleo, obviously, it can be annoying, but people were running it in Artifacts, which is a little bit different than running it in the Hestia decks, which I think it was a bit of a better choice. But I get why people ran it in Artifacts. It's just easy access to Nexus banks and stuff like that. Morolith is a preemptive hit. Ferrogeist was a preemptive hit and is still really difficult to deal with if it hits the board. And it's all automatically like you lose if your opponent gets it out and you don't draw your one-off Earthquake or Resting whilst they've only got it on board. So what I think should happen and what could change and could be for the better, which I want to run a tournament like this at some point, hopefully, fingers crossed, when I get a chance, is this. So this basically uses Duel Links style ban list system. So, for example, anything that is semi-limited, you can only have 2 copies of any of the cards in your deck. We've got here as examples Elechick, Zeus, Demeter, Sparkit. Because all of these are semi-limited, you could either run 2 Chick, 2 Zeus, 2 Demeter, or 2 Sparkit, but you cannot run 2 of each in your deck. So if you wanted to run Chick and Zeus, you would have to run 1 Chick, 1 Zeus, because they are semi-limited. Or, if you wanted to do the Sparkits play, you could play 1 Sparkit, 1 Zeus, or just play 2 Sparkit and hope you've got a different Nexus bank for your funders. That's the sort of style that I would like. And then another example being Tri-Limited. This is where it expands the ban list massively, because you can limit things to up to 3 copies per deck. So you could run 2 Argo, 1 Necklace, but you couldn't run 2 Necklace, 2 Argo, because that's more than 3. 2 plus 2 is 4. So you'd have to limit down what you've got, and it would mean more combinations of things could be on the list together, but still have a game plan altogether. So like the 1 Sparkit, 1 Zeus, you could theoretically still have the Sparkit play if you happen to draw 2 of one-offs, which is significantly more unlikely than your opponent drawing 1 one-off. It's something that should be thought about, but I don't think is ever been truly considered, or if it's just been swept under the rug and people haven't understood it properly. When I first heard it in Duel Links, it did take a while to get my head around. When you know what it's on about, it's easy. Even the Chick and Zeus could be tri-limited. You could run 2 Chick, 1 Zeus, or 2 Zeus, 1 Chick. The possibilities for this go crazy. Really powerful cards could be limited, like Earthquake, Rise from the Ashes. Things like that could be at once, so you could play one or the other, but never both at the same time. And it could be the same for other cards. So if we go back to here, the Void would never have had to have been hit at this point, because you could, in theory, try limit the Werepup and the Full Moon. So then you'd have to play either 2 Werepup, 1 Full Moon. People would already do, they'd just be cutting 1 Werepup down. If the Werepup and the Full Moon were tri-limited, then your opponents, or even yourself, would only play 2 Werepup, 1 Full Moon. So you're cutting down for 1 extra Werepup, so then they would only ever really cast off of the Void with its original effect 1 extra Werepup, rather than the 2 Werepups. That is much easier to out than 2 Werepups being on the field, because you can Cryoblast 1, and then you can also easily run over the other copy, the Like Void, I mean, not run over another Werepup. You know what I mean? So it's significantly reducing the amount of what is happening with this version of the ban list being a Duel Link style ban list is that you are making a much wider variety of cards that can be on the list at a time, because you are putting some cards that work together on the list at once. So Ferrogeist could be part of that tri-limited section, because the problem with Ferrogeist was the Full Moon side. So it could even be Full Moon semi-limited, Ferrogeist semi-limited, so you can only play one of each, because that was a big issue. That's one of the reasons why it was hit. So if you reduce these cards and pile them together into a tri-limited or semi-limited thing, or even just limited, you are significantly changing the entire deck building style, because you've got cards that you can't always run together. Because you wouldn't be able to run Chick, Zeus, Spark It, because they're all semi-limited. So you'd have to run either the Spark It side of it, which would be less consistent because you wouldn't have Chick, or you would run the Chick, Zeus side of it and be more aggressive. But you could never run both together. How I feel like the ban list should shape. So everything would be together, but not together at the same time. So you couldn't run broken strategies. You could still run Demeter at 2 if you weren't even running Chick. That's not a problem. Same with Zeus. You could run that at 2 if you weren't running Chick. But because Chick was such an instigator for being a 7 attacker with the Zeus and Demeter, it needed to be hit. But it also needed to not be hit because of the starter decks and things like that. So right now, most cards are going to get limited in the future. Come live stream and the set afterwards, there are going to be more and more cards on the limited list, and it's just going to get crazy. We're going to end up with 20 plus cards on the limited list soon, because things aren't changing. Broken effects are getting made, and it's either not being tested or it's just getting completely ignored. Either way, this is really bad, and it doesn't bode well. So I think even just trying this style of list, going through cards and comprehensively putting groups together like the Chick, Zeus, Spark It together, and making sure that they can't all be run together at once in one deck, may help with the health of the game. Now, I'm not saying it's a perfect system. Definitely not. But I think it could help the longevity. Because right now, things are just going to get limited or banned if they are broken in future sets. And it's just going to get worse and worse as we go on. Eventually, we may as well all just be playing Commander-style decks with everything being a one-off. And that's how it feels like it's going to end up being, which is really unfortunate. So, let me know what you think in the comments below. We are nearly at 200 subscribers. When I get to 250 subscribers, I'll be giving away a poster like that. Camera following me, which I will put on screen somewhere and show you what it is. And we'll hopefully at 250 be able to give one of those away. Anyway, thank you for watching. Peace out.